Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Man, God, I wish I did this before the recording. But I gotta ask you something.
Yeah.
It's kind of personal, but since we're friends, and we're with friends as well out there who listen to us, this is probably the best time for me to talk about this, because I've had something on my mind that's been troubling me, and I just feel like I can talk to you about it. So do you mind if I ask a question to you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's been weighing on me. Do you think gay porn has stepbro porn?
I'd imagine so. That has to be a niche somewhere.
You think so?
Probably.
Yeah, you really think so? Because on the one hand, us being guys, we're all degenerates in some sort of way, and like stepbro porn is kind of like the lowest form of degeneracy. Like, it's not technically wrong, but it's kind of socially unacceptable for you to sleep with your stepsister, because it is kind of, it really isn't, but it kind of is, but like, I mean, it's, but on the other hand, like, I always, and this is me stereotyping. I realize that I always think gay guys as kind of like more classy than that. And I just don't see a gay guy who's dressed really well, sitting on a nice furnished couch with a glass table, looking at their iPad, looking at gay stepbro porn. I don't see that. So I don't. So but I'm conflicted because they're guys, and of course they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm into that shit. Sure, why not? Like, can you imagine like some like I don't know, just some guy is like, hey bro, what's up, bro? Hey, what's going on, bro? Yo, bro, you want to suck your dick, bro? I'm like, yeah, okay, bro. Just don't tell dad, bro. It's like I don't see. Maybe I'm wrong, but honestly, it's also something I'm not willing to find out. But it just, I don't know what got me. God, what? Okay, let's be honest. I was looking at porn, but I don't know what got me to the point of, do gay people have this as well? Like, I guess in my never-ending striving for equality, maybe in a part of me I hope so, but a part of me also is like, I hope they're better than this, because I feel, because it's kind of wrong, because like the next step up is like stepson, stepmother porn, which that's wrong, like, because that's pretty wrong in a big way, but there's that too. So yeah, like I often wonder if you guys know, email us at zerowizcast@gmail.com if you know this. Don't send video links. Just let us know if it's real, okay? Okay. Anyway, Zero, you had some time with my most hated of video games, the ones I detest the most, the ones I rail on the most, and that is Destiny 2. I'll say it. I'll say it before, and I'll say it again. I think the gameplay of Destiny 2 is fantastic, but the anti-consumer stuff that they do turns me right off from playing the game. But not you, apparently, because you wanted to try all the new anniversary stuff that they're doing in the game. So tell us what you did on Destiny 2 this week.
Well, I'll make the disclaimer that Destiny 2 has been an abusive relationship with me, and I actually went on a hiatus for the game for several years, mostly because it just went into the whole bad cycle of things, and that was when I sort of dropped the game. I was just like, wow, this is no longer fun to play. As a person who values journalistic integrity, I saw the news that Bungie was celebrating their company's 30th anniversary with a whole bunch of stuff that they're going to do in Destiny 2. One of the big ones was they were pretty much allowing anyone to play the new Witch Queen content and all that stuff completely for free. And I think that was over an entire weekend too. But I had some extra money laying around, so I was like, let me just go ahead and just get up to complete and just see where the game stands now, because it has been several years, and I kind of want to see how the game feels after many years of me not playing it and everything. And true to form, the game's gunplay is fantastic. It is just a superb time, but I know right now the game is currently in a good phase.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm a little leery to see what will happen when it goes into the bad phase and Bungie starts blaming the players, going, and you guys are playing the game wrong, because I have a feeling once that happens, I'll probably be in the mood of, all right, I'm probably not going to check this out anymore. But I digress. So 30th anniversary stuff is going on. The game is in its 18th season of season pass content, and it's got a mode where you can send a pirate crew to do some plundering for you and all that sort of fun jazz. As neat as the game still plays, holy crap, the systems are confusing now. There's just so much stuff going on, and the class system has completely changed, because by the time I had left, there was a third variation on all of your class elemental trees, and now that's been completely upended, and it's just a whole crazy thing where you can customize how your class works. It's just a lot of insanity now, but just it's kind of neat for anyone who has a particular playstyle. Like, one of the things that you can do as a hunter now is, for example, in the solar tree, one of the grenade specializations you can change to is you can change to a healing grenade that basically, when you throw it, it just makes a giant healing light zone. So you and your party members can just scramble to the zone and just drink up some healing light to ward off any damage that you've got. So the skill tree is now really intense, which is kind of cool. A little bit confusing for me as a returning player who hasn't played in several years, but yeah, I could definitely see somebody who might really be into it just going absolutely crazy with just some sort of insane build or something. I think Twitch Prime also was giving away some free gear as well too. So I ended up doing that and everything, which was kind of nice to tie into the whole Bungie 30th anniversary stuff. And then there was also some free engrams that were being dropped to help people kind of catch up and get in on the excitement for the Bungie 30th anniversary celebration and everything.
Okay.
But all in all, just kind of a neat way to sort of try to get people back into the game and everything. But at the same time, just, well, in classic Bungie fashion, just all these new things, like how crazy the skill trees are and things like that. Just very bare minimal explanation.
Yeah.
You almost have to kind of pull up a wiki to just sort out everything, which is a bit of a downside, especially if you're trying to attract more players into the game and everything. But just that's just Bungie being Bungie, unfortunately.
So Destiny 2 is now turning itself around to become Warframe, basically, is what's happening, right?
Yeah, it almost kind of feels like it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, like I've said, like, the gameplay of Destiny 2 is not have been the problem at all. Like, when I was playing it, and I didn't play raids at all, because I generally don't like doing long-term cooperative play. Like, the gameplay is solid. Like, I used to do Gambit a lot. I used to do missions, do the strikes, right? The 3-player cooperative like missions.
Yep, the Vanguard strikes.
The Vanguard. Yep. I used to do all those, but then when they started taking away content, is when I said, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm not playing this anymore." But yeah, but the gameplay is just fantastic. I I've always liked the gameplay. So it's yeah, it's sad, and it's good that they're not doing it anymore. But yeah, I don't know if we discussed it on the podcast or we've discussed it on here. It's great that they're not gating the content anymore, but there's still content that people can't access. So yeah, like to me, it was too little, too late on Destiny 2 for me. I'll be honest though, I would love to go back and play it again, but I'm just so turned off by their practices that I just feel no desire to give them any support at all. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's completely understandable because I know one of the big things that sort of turned off a lot of veteran players, myself included, was just the announcement of having to retire content and just the rationale behind it being really weak, in my opinion. Because I think the rationale, if I remember correctly, was something to the tune of, "Oh well, due to engine constraints and things like that, we have to retire certain pieces of content because it just simply doesn't work the way that we want the game to work now." And it was really sad because some of the missions that were retired were important and pivotal to the story and the lore and everything, especially for anyone who values sweet lore.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a, hey, this is what it is, and just it sucks, but unfortunately this is what's happening, and sorry, we can't really do much to make it that you can play this or whatever. And some of the missions retired were just really fun strikes and things like that. So it was a little bit of a travesty to sort of see very fun strikes being retired because of the fact that they had some sort of issue with engine constraints, so to speak. But I mean, I'm not a programmer. I'm not Bungie, so who's to say that their decision was right or their decision was wrong? But I think, unfortunately, it just left a gaping hole for anyone who wanted to play Destiny 2 and really wanted to drink up the lore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we've talked about it too, where Destiny fans will say, "Just watch a video to get the lore," and this is like that's stupid. That it's. I understand some who will say just read the codex to a certain extent, which I still think is pretty stupid. If you want someone to be invested in your game and its story, you want to visually represent that and not rely on a wall of text to do it. I think the last game I remember that did the wall of text thing in a good way was Lost Odyssey with their contingent stories that they would have about Cain. I think the character's name was Cain, and the people that he dealt with throughout his immortal life. Those were interesting side things. They weren't pivotal to the story so much, but they were interesting side stuff. But to make the main story, you're going to have to either go elsewhere to find it or to look at the codex in order to get it is just, it's a poor move. And yeah, Destiny 2 fans will white knight for them and be like, "Oh, it's completely okay. We don't care." Like, yeah, okay, fine. Sure. Go ahead. But yeah, it was just a bad move. And yeah, it's a shame. I really like the game. I really do. So let us get to the news. And the news to this week, it seems like every time we go on here, we keep saying it's a light week, but then we find like 6 or 7 stories that are actually pretty interesting. So why don't we just get down to the first topic? A lot of financial news happened in the gaming industry this week, and a lot of purchasing of stakes at different studios, and also an acquisition happened this week. So why don't we start with, I think, what happened today, which is Tuesday, which was big news, that Tencent took a rather sizable stake of Ubisoft today. Believe the percentage was 49.9%. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 49.9.
Yeah, which makes Tencent it does not make Tencent the major owner or the controlling owner. The Guillemot brothers are still those. But that makes let's talk more about it. Really, what does this mean? What do you think this means for Ubisoft that Tencent took such a sizable controlling stake into the or not non-controlling stake really, but took a sizable financial stake into Ubisoft?
We got a comment a while ago on one of our videos about this speculation originally.
Yes,
and what the commenter had said, this sounds like Tencent is possibly looking for a company to partner up with for Western publishing and localization, which could be a plausible idea.
right.
I think the other thing is just, at least from what I can see, is this potentially gives Tencent easier access to Ubisoft's IPs and potentially lets them do some, I guess, licensed port work for the Chinese market. That's my immediate thought that I can think of.
The comment said they feel like Tencent wants to bring its own games to the American public through Ubisoft. It's a brand name it's the brand name that's worth buying. So that is an interesting thought. I also think that the purchasing of Tencent will mean that my opinion, that Ubisoft is probably going to put more chips into its, I would say, flagging mobile division that they have. They have a bunch of mobile games that are, I don't think, doing so hot right now. Let me just check real quick. I know that Rayman had his own game. Division, Rainbow Six. There was an Assassin's Creed one. Just Dance has one for some reason. Elite Squad is the big one, if I recall correctly. But even that isn't doing so hot either, from what I've heard at least. This also might be a stake into the Chinese market as well. So that could also be a reason why they're buying up, so they can have control in their market when it comes to those games. I mean, we're just speculating on this, really. But that's my opinion, because I think this means that they're. I think it also means that the Tom Clancy name is probably going to be used a lot more than it already is, and that's saying something, because the Tom Clancy name is used a lot in Ubisoft. So there's that.
I think more interesting was the PR blast that Ubisoft had put out, that they had engaged in this deal with Tencent because supposedly the money in Tencent will provide sustainable business in the game development field, was what the PR blast said, and it just sounds a little bit flowery on the language and everything, because just Tencent, while they do have quite a big war chest of money and everything, the real big question is just going to be what happens when the Ubisoft purchase doesn't really provide that great of a return on the money. If, say, they just can't really hit their numbers and everything, because while Tencent is pretty generous on just doling out the cash and everything, they will demand answers if the numbers are just not really turning over anything that is profitable. I know there was one unofficial Warframe content creator saying that the financial reports regarding Warframe from Tencent's public reports, they seem to gloss over just Warframe's numbers, especially considering that Warframe's previous owner had reported that the game was actually reporting losses and everything, but yet just with Tencent's ownership of Warframe now, Tencent has been a bit evasive on the numbers and everything.
I don't know.
So it makes me wonder what will happen in the event that Ubisoft's games do not perform as predicted and everything.
Mm. That will be interesting. They're known to be pretty ruthless when it comes to studio acquisitions and shuttering as well when they don't perform. So I don't think that will be really much of a problem for Ubisoft, because as much as they have some issues, they still have cash cows like Rainbow Six Siege that will make them money. So I don't think that will be much of an issue really, unless I don't know, unless their next few games turn out to be total duds, which might be the issue for Skull and Bones. I don't think that would be much of an issue on that end. But yeah, it will be interesting what happens with Ubisoft after Tencent has more of a stake on what they're doing. So, speaking of Tencent as well, they also took more financial stakes in another studio, and along with Sony, Sony and Tencent, I believe, took 15% stakes in FromSoft. Am I correct on that? It was a total of 30 between the two of them. So,
yeah, I believe the split was about 15%. Tencent, 15% on Sony.
Right.
So yeah, both companies now own a third of From Software, and then I think the rest of the controlling shares are under Katakawa Games, which is a subsidiary of the Katakawa Group, which also publishes manga and also is behind some anime studios.
Right. I mean, this is just this purchase is essentially them going to a hot studio that has had a proven track record for the last, good God, 5 games now? Has it been 5 games? Yeah. From the last 5 games, and it's just to bolster their portfolio. In my mind, these companies are not going to do a damn thing to FromSoft. They're going to say, hey, make us money. And they're like, yeah, okay, Elden Ring 2. Oh, okay, great. And that's it. I think that's essentially it. Like they've had such a proven track record that you don't want to fuck with them. Give them your money, sure, but you don't want to you don't want to give them notes and say, hey, can we make Elden Ring a little more happier? That makes more sales. Like, they're not going to do that. They're just going to say, hey, here's money, make more money, please, is essentially what I think is going on. Maybe there's a little bit of incentive for them to do a Bloodborne remaster or a Bloodborne 2 for Sony. Maybe. But I think this is genuinely just a financial bolstering for both parties. Basically saying, hey, let's take a portion of this company so we can just make more money off of what they're doing. Is my opinion. I think that's all that is, really.
Yeah, and I know that there was a lot of doom and gloom from some people who aren't quite well-versed on how things like stocks work, because I remember seeing internet forum chatter of, oh my god, Sony's going to start making FromSoft bend knee and make their games exclusive to PlayStation and PC. It's going to be over. Yeah, no more Xbox crap. And it's just like, yeah, 15%. Yeah, sure, that might grant them some voting board rights, but not enough to really completely bend the company to its knee and say, you will do exactly what we asked for.
Right.
So,
right. I would have been more worried if that was Tencent buying it, to be completely honest. But no, Sony's not going to do that. And this is, like I said, this is purely a financial acquisition that they are using to bolster their own profits. They just saw a good studio that does good work, that makes a lot of sales, and say, hey, I want a piece of that, and here's more money to make a better game, and do what you gotta do. And they set them off as merry way and do as such. So, yeah, I don't see that doom and gloom happening. Like, to be absolutely honest, because, and also when it comes to financials and sales, you want these games to be in as much homes and as much consoles and PCs as possible. So Sony acquiring them to just make it exclusive would probably not be such a good idea on their end. But anyway, yeah, that's final thing that we're going to talk about is that NetEase is acquiring Quantic Dream. This is David Cage's studio, the ones that did Beyond Two Souls, Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain. We've talked about Quantic Dream before. They've had a lot of issues. Like, I think now what they've been trying to staff up with the new Star Wars game, but they're having such a hard time finding staff that they have since delayed the game to be released 2027. Like that's how bad the staffing is right now, and there's a reason why they're having a hard time staffing. They have a terrible reputation, and especially David Cage, who has had a reputation of not only enforcing, I would say, a bad working environment, but perpetuating those who continue to make that environment bad as well. So there's definitely a culture problem there that has been well reported. Also, and this is just me, Quantic Dream, they make they do good sales, but they're still kind of a niche product. And the problem with the type of product that they make is that it takes one game for someone to then say, yeah, I'll hold off on buying the next one till I hear good things. Especially with that style of game, when it's story and dialogue driven. And I'll be honest myself, I have tried all of their games, except for Detroit. I've tried all of their games, and the dialogue rips me right out of it. Like, I thought... I could not understand why so many people loved Heavy Rain. And when I played that, I was like, this is awful. What is this? But, yeah, it's got its fan base, but it's known to have... The writing of these games are known to not be so hot. And I don't think you can do that with the Star Wars property. You might get some good sales, but once people start realizing, oh, this is not such a hot game, or this is kind of bad in the writing sense, and when half of your game is writing, you're going to have a problem when it comes to the Star Wars property. Zero, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting purchase for NetEase, especially considering just Quantic Dream has had a bit of a troubling set of recent years, especially just when some of the cultural problems of the studio came out. I think one of the weird ones was just Elliot Page's nudes were basically found on like a server that had David Cage's personal stash and stuff like that. Yep. Just really weird and creepy shit.
No, and not only that, it was in the code. So modders could then take that out, and you can put that in the or you can just take it out. And weren't there videos of showing those nudes on YouTube for a small period of time as well? Like, yeah, like it. Man, and there's more to it than that with David Cage. David Cage is also known to be quite, how do I put this, stuck up, I guess, or
he's a bit pretentious.
I guess pretentious is the right word, because
I mean he's come off of basically just claiming that pretty much all of his stuff is just like the best in the world. Nothing can surpass what he makes or whatever.
Right. So then it fits. Yeah, he has a healthy ego on him, and it trickles down to his staff too. So man, this is a risky acquisition for NetEase, to be absolutely honest. And they're getting the studio. They're not getting any properties that are worth mining. Like, no one's clamoring for a Beyond Two Souls sequel or a free to play Heavy Rain. No one's wanting that at all. They just hear Quantic Dream, and let's also be honest too. Part of Quantic Dream and what makes people interested in their games is how they look, because they are each time they make a new game, they are pretty damn well good looking. They really are. Honestly, like, this is a risky purchase. This could end up basically not cratering NetEase, but basically turning into a purchase with nothing behind it in, I would say, maybe 5 years' time, where maybe they still can't staff up and Disney says, okay, we're pulling the Star Wars brand out. You guys can't do this. Let's just take it out. And because from what I've read about Disney, they're not patient really at all, unless it's really,
hell no.
yeah, unless it's really, really, really worth their time. Like Star Wars 1313, okay? That had delays like crazy, if I recall correctly. And instead of saying, well, we have these good developers and what they're doing is exciting, so let's give us more time, they said, nope, we're taking it elsewhere. Bye. And that was it. It was done. So I see this, honestly, unless they do something drastically different in Quantic Dream, I see this being a purchase where they get nothing out of it.
I would be inclined to agree. It may even become a money pit of a problem for NetEase too, that they'll end up just dumping truckloads of money and saying, what the hell do you need to actually fucking function? And then just getting frustrated after a number of years.
Yeah. And I would also say this as well, to those of you who I guess are what you deridedly call Sony ponies. I think this pretty much says this is the end of Quantic Dream making exclusives to PlayStation. These are multi-platform games now. So I don't see NetEase essentially acquiring a studio and saying, yeah, only Sony can use them. No, I think if they're going to put money into this studio, which I would assume they would have to in order to get this running, they're going to want to put this in as much places as possible, which also might denigrate the quality of the graphics as well. Because if they can, because another thing about these companies, if you can do it more efficiently, that's what they want. They don't care about artistic perfection. They care about getting that product, putting the product out, selling the product, making another product. That's what they care about. They're not going to want to hear that we need another 2 years because the facial expressions when it comes to the eyes of the characters aren't what the standards to what David Cage wants. They're not going to put up with that shit. They're going to say, no, release the game. So I don't see this being such a good acquisition. So I think this is going to be, I think I said already, in 5 years' time, this will be one where we'll look at that and go, oh, wow, Quantic Dream is not doing anything anymore because no one's there, or they can't release anything, or David Cage is not happy with upper management. Like, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, and a clash with upper management, that's definitely a scenario I could see, and I can see just David Cage making a huge stink about it to the press.
Yeah.
Count on it.
And you know what the press will do? Nothing, because they don't like David Cage either. So, yep, he's that'll be interesting. Okay, so let us move on to the next story. You know, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard for Microsoft is a story that keeps on going. And basically, it came out yesterday, Monday, I believe, on Labor Day, that there was a memo of sorts that Microsoft's Phil Spencer sent to Sony and to Activision, basically saying that Xbox is committing to COD for being on PlayStation for quote unquote several years. I mean, that's really the story. Zero, what are your thoughts on Phil Spencer saying that?
It's more of a contractual obligation because of the fact that just when Activision Blizzard made that exclusivity a contract that PlayStation would be the official place to play the Call of Duty tournaments and things like that. And, I mean, that's all I kind of see this as being. As cynical as that may sound, that is just kind of a, hey, don't worry, we're just gonna abide by business as usual. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
And that's really the most that I can really see of this. Just especially since there's been a lot of forum chatter about doom and gloom and stuff like that. Like, oh my god, just the Call of Duty tournaments are going to be on Xbox. This blows. And it's really funny too because of course it's always just the tryhards on the forums that bitch about this sort of thing and make it more than it seems. Because I saw some tryhards going, this is bullshit. Now I have to go buy an Xbox Series X, and the Xbox Series X is a garbage console. But if I want to compete and maybe attempt to go to the pro circuit for competitive Call of Duty, I have to have an Xbox.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a simple matter of reading comprehension that if they would actually sit down and read the article, it literally spells it out that, yeah, this is still a contract obligation that things likely are not going to change while the contract is still in action. And I think the contract has maybe a couple more years to go. So it's not like it's going to be anything immediate, at least as far as I can see.
Right. At minimum, it's 3 years. I would say at most, it's probably 5 or 6 years on the contract. My guess is what that is. Basically, what it sounds like to me is what's going to happen with COD when it comes to being on PlayStation. Is this generation, COD's going to be on PlayStation. That's it. Like this generation, it's going to be on Game Pass on an Xbox. But they will put it on PlayStation. You can buy it for $70 if you want on PlayStation. It'll be the generation after that is where I think that they will cut off COD from PlayStation. Because at this point, like, once this goes through, and there's still questions as to whether it will or not. I still think it will. But it's okay to question whether it will or not. I think that... Excuse me. I think that basically we're looking at least, like you said, the contract that they have is probably going to be honored, which they've already said. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a new contract where for after that contract's done, where they allow it on PlayStation, but the cut is much larger on Microsoft's side. And at that point, Sony might just say, nah, screw it. We don't want it now. That could be a possibility. But I foresee that COD will be on PlayStation for at least this generation. And that's probably it. I don't think the PS5, as long as the PS5 is out, I think you'll see a COD every year. I think, at least. Maybe at PlayStation 6 that's going to change, but PlayStation 5, I think you guys are okay.
Yeah, and I'd probably be inclined to agree with that as well too, that they're not going to cut off one platform just because, hey, just that's a competing platform. They're just going to see that the money's there, and it'll just be a game that when you kick on your PS5, it's going to say Xbox Game Studios, and that's probably going to be surreal for a lot of PlayStation loyalists out there, seeing an Xbox logo pop up on their PS5. But that'll just be the nature of things.
So, in what I would call dumb things to post on Twitter, Glenn Schofield, who is, I believe, the game director of the Callisto protocol for private is it for Private Division or is it for let me just double check here. I think it's Private Division. But anyway, He's the game director for Striking Distance Studios, the CEO, and the director Glenn Schofield. Yeah. So he basically had a tweet that went along the lines of, and I'll read it right here. Mind the broken English. It's not me. It's what he tweeted on there. I only talk about the game during an event. We are working 6-7 days a week. Nobody's forcing us. Exhaustion, tired, COVID, but we're working. Bugs, glitches, perfect performance fixes. One last pass through audio. 12 to 15 hour days. This is gaming, hard work, lunch, dinner, working. You do it because you love it. Barring in mind that the English was fucking atrocious. Good lord. This caused a lot of controversy, especially with gaming journos who honestly on this I understand where crunch is still a thing in the gaming industry. I think in the majority of the game industry it's still a thing. And with it getting such bad publicity when it happens, and when articles come out about how bad crunch is in certain studios, like CDPR, this is a terrible look. Zero, what did you think about Glenn Schofield and his tweet about crunching to death his studio? I don't know what.
Oh, it was a terrible look, and the worst part was it happened during Labor Day weekend in the U.S. And for anyone who knows the context of the Labor Day holiday, it's supposed to celebrate the everyman worker.
Yes.
So to basically just put this post out that glorified the hell out of crunch culture, it was just like, dude, this is not the time to glorify that sort of stuff. I mean, and sure, maybe everyone in your studio is passionate about it, but yeah, just the way that you're gallivanting about this, it just seems like you're glorifying and saying only real studios who care about their products will crunch themselves to death, and that's just not a good look right now, especially when you've got horrifying stories of like people at Rockstar doing 16 to 18 hour days because they see the boss still sitting at his desk and going, well, shit, we can't leave because the boss is still here, because if we leave, then the boss is going to think we're not pulling our own weight, and they're going to basically recommend us to be terminated or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, definitely not a good look, but apparently Schofield actually walked his whole crunch post back by deleting it, then posting a updated apology, basically saying, anyone who knows me knows how passionate I am about the people I work with. Earlier I tweeted how proud I was of the effort and hours my team was putting in. That was wrong. We value passion and creativity, not long hours. I'm sorry to the team for coming across like this. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a half-assed apology, in my opinion.
Barely is. It's a PR apology. It's basically I have to do this in order to save face for my company, so we don't have another story in the next couple of days. I would suspect within a week we're going to see an article about crunch culture in the Callisto Protocol dev. Give it a week, maybe two. There's going to be either Bloomberg or Kotaku will have an article about it, and they're going to talk to sources and people that are not Glenn Schofield in the studio to discuss what they're going through.
I would probably put my chips with Jason Schreier, because I believe he runs a anonymous encrypted mailbox for anyone who wants to email him like an anonymous tip and everything. So I would probably count it that Jason Schreier will probably get someone from the Striking Distance studios anonymously telling him, hey, yeah, so here's how bad the crunch is, and it's going to be a mortifying look. Right. I swear.
But this is also the problem with crunch in itself. Like, even I recognize, okay, as someone who used to work 12, 13-hour days, 6 days a week, and it pretty much destroyed my mentality after a certain point of time after that. When you work a certain amount of hours over what you usually should be, your performance lessens. It doesn't help things. Like you get more bugs, you get more problems, you get more errors. Because you're so fucking tired and you're not paying much attention to what you're doing, that it doesn't help things in order to do that. However, the other issue is that now Callisto Protocol has a date as to which they have to hit in order to make their money. And I've heard some commentators say, just delay the game another 6 months. Who cares if you delay it? See, I agree with you on principle. However, what are getting people excited about the game is not only that it looks good, but from the people who developed Dead Space. Dead Space has a remake coming in January, and if that turns out to be really good, I can see that eating up the sales of Callisto Protocol. So you can all say, just delay it. Who cares? Don't crunch. It's fine. And I understand why you say that, because you don't want these people to suffer any longer. I really get that. But delaying it means you need more money to actually do more of the work that you need to do. So you need to put more money down, which means you need to make more sales. If you delay it and the Dead Space sequel or the Dead Space remake does really well, I don't see anybody wanting to play Callisto Protocol after that, unless Callisto just blows it right out of the water, which is a possibility, but that's a risk. And honestly, these companies, especially a company like, what's the company's name? Striking Distance? They may not want to make that risk. So they probably want to get as much sales as possible. And as someone who looks at the finances and looks at the potential sales, the best time to release this is probably when they're released. Well, I would say it's October, but if it has to be December, then fine, do it December. That will probably be your best bet. Do it before Dead Space comes out. Because if you do it after, it's going to eat your sales. So, I hate saying this, Zero, but yes, I don't want them to crunch. It's terrible to do that. However, you also have to understand the financial implications of this, and if they delay it like 6 months to a year, that could potentially hurt their sales. So I don't know if that is something that they can do at this point. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean it's something that's got a lot of shades of gray in this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite as black and white as most people would like to make it out to be. But yeah, it's going to be tough, especially, I mean, like you said, just if the Dead Space reboot in early 2023 ends up just blowing people's minds, just people might just go, Callisto Protocol who? So
I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think it will just eat up the sales, a good portion of the sales that Callisto Protocol would have had if they released first. I don't think here's what I think might happen in this. If you release it in December, you could have a big financial hit because people are excited for this game. If you release it in June, I think it will become what I would say is a cult hit. Something that doesn't do a lot of sales, but has a lot of positive word of mouth. And then when it goes on sale, it starts selling. Okay. That I think could be what happens. You don't want that. You want to have the big sales. So you need it in December. So Yeah, I don't. 'Cause I think no matter what, Dead Space is going to make the sales because Dead
Yeah.
Space is a known quantity, and since the remake, people know what it is, and since they're doing different things in the Dead Space remake, they're going to look forward to that. They're going to buy it no matter what. Callisto Protocol isn't, and you can tell people this is from the people who made Dead Space. They don't care. They just want to look at, oh, does it look cool? Oh, it looks gory. It looks like, oh, cool, awesome. I guess I'll check that out. Oh, Dead Space isn't until next month. I'll get this then. That's what I think is how they're gonna get all their sales. The other problem is, and let me also double back on crunch real quick. Crunch is something that shouldn't happen for multiple reasons, but I think a big reason why it shouldn't happen is you can schedule this so much better than most studios can do. Now, have I made a game? No. I'll be upfront with that. So if you don't want to believe me, fine. But anything that requires a team to get done, it takes good management and good scheduling to do it efficiently. This can be done without crunch. It just seems like these studios don't know how to manage their time and money, and all they do is they burn their cash, and then when they don't have cash, they either have to release the game as is, or they have to get more money in, which means they have to now guarantee a date at which they have to actually release so they can get as much sales as possible, which means a good portion of that time is going to be taken off from getting a vertical slice to show people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get what I'm saying. But these studios need to manage a lot better than they already are doing, because I agree with a lot of people. Crunch should not be a thing. It really shouldn't. And you should take the financial hit if you can't do it in the time that you said you were going to, and just delay it. But I also see with studios like this where they just can't do it. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what else to say, really. This crunch shouldn't be a thing anymore, but it is. It will continue to be as long as these people are getting rewarded for doing so, which, again, is another thing, which requires more gamers to care about development and how these games get made. And let's be honest, in entertainment, almost no one cares. So, I'm sorry to be so dour, but that's the truth. All right, Zero, our next story involves Halo Infinite. 343 made an announcement this past week. We'll get to the good news first, okay? The good news is that Forge is coming in November. Okay? It's a feature that everybody's been waiting for. That usually adds more gameplay modes and more interesting stuff for players to do in Halo Infinite, which is something that Halo Infinite desperately needs. They need more stuff to do in this game. The bad news is twofold. First, they're delaying the third season of Halo Infinite until March of next year, thus making their second season 10 months long. So that's pretty bad. The other thing that happened is that they are officially canceling split screen co-op for the campaign, which is a heavily advertised feature that they were touting that will definitely be in the game no matter what. And this also compounds the fact that a modder has found out that the mode is in there and it's workable, but they're just not releasing it. So there's that added wrinkle as well. Zero, what do you think about the trials and tribulations of 343 Industries when it comes to Halo Infinite?
This reeks of mismanagement just
boy.
through and through.
Oh,
Just
boy.
don't get me wrong. Just I think the Halo games are plenty entertaining and stuff like that, but just everything about Infinite has just reeked of mismanagement, because you have just the game coming out in the state that it did, just kind of hey, here's the game. Oh, by the way, just the multiplayer part is pretty much going to be sort of a free-to-play affair. The campaign is what you're paying for, and then of course just the campaign having its own issues, like the fact that if you complete a mission but didn't find all the skulls and everything, then there's no way to go back into a mission and go, okay, well, I want to go back and collect all the skulls that I missed or whatever. It's just a complete mess on the management side. And then of course, a lot of people had fun with Halo 5 Guardians having the ability to play the entire campaign in co-op mode. And of course, co-op mode was completely missing in this one. And of course, the grand promise of, oh, well, just we'll get co-op mode in and we'll even get split screen co-op in. Just be patient, give us some time. And then, of course, now we've got this announcement that split screen co-op is going to be done away with, and that network co-op is just going to be delayed for a little while. I just don't know what else to say. It's just been complete mismanagement just all over the damn place.
343 Industries doesn't have a good reputation with the Halo fan base. They're about... I think they're worse than DICE at this point with Battlefield. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, absolutely. That's not... It's also kind of not fair, but on the other hand, like Halo was... When Halo was with Bungie, pretty much all their games were outright bangers. Everyone loved it. I love their games. But with 343, Halo 4 was okay. People were like, yeah, it's good, but hopefully it'll be better next time. And then Master Chief Collection was a dumpster fire when it came out. Like that was broken when it came out. 5 didn't do so hot with other fans of the Halo series. And now Infinite is having so many problems as well. A part of me wants to say that getting rid of split screen co-op will actually free them up to do more on the multiplayer side, but I have doubts with that too. I guess the one question I have with you, Zero, is this. Should Microsoft take Halo away from 343 Industries?
Yes and no. I want to say really just... They need to get rid of whoever the project manager is for 343 and just install a better and more competent project manager to keep everyone on track. Because I think what's going on with Halo, at least kind of as an observation, is that they scope creep themselves into something much bigger than they could handle. And it's only now that they're basically fessing up and going, yeah, these are the following things that we won't be able to meet the deadlines on, and these are the things that we're just flat out killing because we just know we're not going to be able to meet the deadline and expectations that everyone's looking for.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you to a certain extent. If Microsoft doesn't fire the project lead, once they purchase officially Activision, if they don't fire the project lead and put somebody from Call of Duty into the project lead to get that running like quickly or efficiently, I would say, I think it's about time you take away the property from 343. I'm not saying like fire everyone from 343 and trash the entire studio. No, I think at this point, you would have to think about taking that property away because Halo has gone downhill since Halo 4, and the only constant is 343 at this point. So at this point, I kind of agree. Like I hate the gamers who like you gotta fire all those people and get rid of them and stuff. I kind of have to agree with them at this one. Because this is bad. This is a really bad look, especially for a property like Halo that pretty much made Xbox what it is, and is continued. And Halo's success is married to Xbox's success. So without that, I mean, it's going to look bad for Microsoft all around on that. So I think they have to do one of two things: either get a new project, like you said, get a new project manager, and fix everything, and set realistic goals as to what can be done, or take the property away, give it to somebody else, let them deal with it, and then let 343 make, I don't know, maybe their own game, maybe a property, maybe a small property, maybe I don't know. What other properties? Microsoft has plenty of other properties. Give them another property to deal with. Give them, I wouldn't say, no, don't give them Banjo-Kazooie. Don't do that. Give them another property that you have that they can possibly use. Like, or put them in development with Perfect Dark. Like, help the people at Perfect Dark get through that clusterfuck right now. Do that. This is so bad, dude. Like, take a property, and I played Halo Infinite multiplayer for a little while. It's fun, but my problem was that they did not update it enough. Like, when you make a live service game, you have to update that monthly. You, at the very least, monthly. 3, 6, 9 months for a season is ridiculous. Is utterly ridiculous. Unless you have a ton of content that you are putting out in that season, they'll keep people entertained, which Infinite is not doing. That's bad, and they need to fix that shit up pronto. They need to do it yesterday. And the fact that they're still having an issue and they're still delaying things and they're now taking stuff out, man, this is gonna be, I hate to say this, but if they don't fix this in like a year's time, I don't think they can recover. Like, I can see Halo Infinite shutting down in 2 years. If not by next year, they don't fix this. Because if it becomes to a point where it can't be fixed, I could see Microsoft saying, "Okay, we're pulling the plug. We're done. Just put it on maintenance mode, and we'll do something else. 343, you're out. We'll put somebody back in, and we'll make a new one. We're done." I see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, it's like you mentioned too, just the fact that this is a live service game, and we've got a second season going on for damn near 10 months.
Yeah.
Just, that's boredom city for anyone who likes the season pass grind. I mean, it's not for me, but yeah, I just have a feeling that just it would just be nothing short of just a bad time, just for anyone who wants to constantly be earning really, really cool and swag looking costume pieces and skins for their guns and whatever. Just, yeah, the fact that you've got a second season going on for damn near close to a year, and and just all this other stuff that's going on, just, it's just bad management of the game in general.
You're absolutely right. And so, I'm sorry, I hate saying this, but heads do need to roll with this, because this is a flagship property for Microsoft. And like I said in the beginning of this, if Halo is not doing well, Xbox is not doing well. Unless something usurps Halo, which I don't see that happening, unless Call of Duty becomes the main thing for Xbox, which is not going to happen for a number of years. I just see this being a big issue, to a point where Microsoft will probably want to save face later and say, let's kill it, if they don't fix it as soon as possible. And if they do that, you can kiss 343 goodbye on Halo, because they're going to take that right out. And they should. If this fails, 343 should not have this property anymore.
Yeah, and really just with just how bad of a mess up that the Master Chief Collection was, they should have really cranked the hammer hard on 343 and basically said, "Hey, what is the fucking deal? Why are your projects just in such mismatched shape?" And yeah, I'm just really surprised that just Phil Spencer hasn't really just taken a microscope to 343 and just kind of looked at them, especially after the Master Chief Collection mess ups and everything. But who knows? Um, what I
I
would give to be a fly on the wall to kind of observe what the hell's going on with 343.
I think if Phil Spencer had more games in the pipeline, like if games like Fable and a Banjo-Kazooie were coming out and those were doing well, he could very well have put a microscope on them and just said, "Okay, stop. We're cutting this. We're done. We're moving on. We're moving on from you." I don't think they can afford to do that. But they're at a point right now where they may have to do that. And it's sad, but unfortunately, if you're not performing, you should be taken off the project. So, hate to say that, but at this point, I'm leaning towards if they don't get this done if they don't fix all this within a year, say goodbye to 343 on Halo. I is my opinion on that at least. All right, Zero, let's move on to our next topic. Oh, good God. I thought I got rid of this game. Diablo Immortal is in the news today. And I'll just say this. I played Diablo Immortal for 2 months and spent about $100 in it. I have never been so unsatisfied with how much money I put into a game before in my life. But this story, wow. This is a doozy. Apparently what's going on is that there is now a debtor's prison in Diablo Immortal. What's been going on is that there are third-party orb selling sites that are selling orbs from Diablo Immortal, I guess for cheaper is my guess. And they're somehow getting the orbs into the game. Well, apparently Blizzard went ahead and, if I understand the story correctly, they found the way, I guess they found the loophole at which these orb sellers are selling these orbs and getting to their customers, and they've pulled all those orbs out of the game. But by doing this, they've left negative orb balances on a bunch of accounts in Diablo Immortal, basically putting players into a situation where if they want to use orbs, they have to make up the difference of what they lost. Am I getting that correctly?
So, to kind of clarify about how the purchases were happening, so
Yeah, go ahead.
basically, what's going on was um, some players would find that there would be gray market sellers who were selling orbs for just really, really cheap.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking ludicrous prices, literally too good to be true sort of territory. And this is a yet another consumer advocacy tale for our listeners. Don't don't buy stuff from shady marketplaces like G2A and Kingwin and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get yourself into trouble. And from what I was ascertaining from all the accounts about this, it basically sounded like some Diablo Immortal players found listings on sites like Kingwin, G2A, and so on and so forth that someone claimed that they could do something like get you $100 in orbs for like a ridiculous $25. So what would happen is you pay them $25, they temporarily log into your account, use a stolen credit card, buy $100 worth of orbs, and then your account gets the $100 in orbs. Then they log off. You change your password to secure it to make sure that the buyer doesn't decide to get back in and lock you out of your account. And boom, there you go. You basically paid $25 for somebody to use a stolen credit card and load $100 worth of orbs into your account.
Mm.
So basically, what sounds like ended up happening was a bunch of people finally realized that they had a really suspicious transaction on their credit card statement from Blizzard, and of course, they called their credit card company saying, "Yeah, so your card was used in San Marcos, Texas, and the person might live in like Seattle or something," and they're just like, "Yeah, I was never in San Marcos. What the shit?" And then, of course, at that point, they'll go, "Okay, well, we're just going to call this transaction fraudulent, and we will basically refund the charges to you, and we'll notify Blizzard that the transaction was fraudulent." So there's that. And then basically just from this tripping off, Blizzard's solution is to basically put the balances, the orb balances in the negative, and essentially soft ban the player until they pay back for their ill-gotten goods.
So this was a definite scam that happened. Yeah. Well, on this case, Blizzard made the right move, I would say. But unfortunately, that does mean that the people who paid the money to these third-party sellers, they lost $25 in the process. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They shouldn't be using third-party sellers to do any of this stuff, especially in a game. Like, use your head in this. If a game is in a fixed economy, where the only way you can interface with it is to interface with the company that is providing the economy, it's too good to be true that a third party can go in and magically get you orbs for cheaper. That seems... That's... Yeah. I don't get that. So yeah, like, I thought this was a legit thing where they were able to get it from third parties, and then suddenly they just revoked it and say, nah, and Blizzard went ahead and just pull all the orbs out. But yeah, and basically what's going to happen with these sellers is basically they're going to stop playing Diablo Immortal. It's essentially what's going to happen. Because...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Especially some of these stories that I was seeing was you had some people who were really whaling it up, and they had bought somewhere to the tune of like 100,000 some odd orbs or something, and now they have a debt of 100,000 orbs, and that's almost the equivalent of like $30,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, this whale who was playing the discount game with these unauthorized third party sellers, yeah, they're not going to come back to the game. So because one, they lost money from a gray market seller, and two, yeah, they're definitely not going to cough up 30 grand just to go, all right, I want to get back into my OP account because I like being OP.
Yeah. Yes, that's pretty much done. But yeah, like, and these are the problems you have to deal with when you have a free-to-play game or when you have microtransactions in a game. I personally dealt with something like this. I think it was FIFA 14, where I was playing the Xbox 360 version, but one day at work, I go to look at my account, and I went from having $1,000 in my account to having $80 in my account within a matter of hours. And I take a look at my account, and it's all Xbox stuff. And it turns out somebody hacked into my Xbox, got my details, and bought a whole bunch of FIFA points. They bought about $900 worth of FIFA points. I was able to get the money back, thank fucking Lord, but they had to lock out my account. I wasn't able to use it for, I think, 30 days while Xbox investigated the issue. I finally got it back, but I was not able to use any credit cards on it, obviously. So that became an issue. But yeah, like it's yeah, like if you're gonna deal with the economy, you want to stay away from third-party sites. I didn't even use a third-party site, but I know I know pretty well that the people who basically hacked my account was from a third-party site at this point. I was able to find that out because of where I worked. But yeah, you don't want to do that, and that's the reason why. Yeah. All right, Zero, so we are at the end of this podcast, but as always, I have a question for you.
All right.
Zero, we talked a little bit about 343 and their mismanagement of the Halo franchise, and I said some strong words as to maybe they need to be taking it off of the property itself. I stick by that. I'm a man of my convictions, and I stand by what I say, goddammit. Anyway, Zero, my question for you is this. What other properties need to be divorced from their current studio?
One that I can think of pretty easily that many people will likely agree with me on is the Pokemon franchise. It really needs to be moved away from Game Freak because not to mince words, but Game Freak has been completely antiquated on their just development principles. It seemed like when things were still on just Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and the DS, that they sort of coasted along and, just were like, pixels work, not a big deal to us. We'll just keep doing the pixel thing and keep things fairly basic, not a problem with us. And then once it got to the 3DS era, they were just like, oh shit, Nintendo wants us to do 3D. Okay, well, yeah, I guess we can kind of slop something together in 3D, I guess.
Yeah, X and Y was not good.
Yeah, so there was that, and then of course, then you had Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which again just didn't really do much improvement on the 3D visuals from X and Y. And then we get into Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu. Still not too great on the 3D model quality. And then you have Sword and Shield, and once again, just 3D model quality just wasn't all that great.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got a lot of people angry because of the fact that they have partnered with some companies before who have made some very high quality 3D models, and some of those high quality 3D models were used in Pokemon partner games. A great example of a more recent partner game that used some very high quality Pokemon models was new Pokemon Snap.
Mm-hmm.
Just the models on that game are just absolutely fantastic. So it's gotten a lot of people who are longtime Pokemon fans asking, why, if you've got a Bandai Namco joint project that has these splendid and well-crafted 3D models of Pokemon, why are we not seeing these high-quality models being used in mainline games?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that the Pokemon games in general also have some very antiquated game system design decisions too. So I think that's one that could definitely be moved away from Game Freak, mostly because they just seem like that they've been sort of coasting on things instead of just really putting themselves to the grindstone and going, okay, let's really book up, learn what makes Pokemon charming, but also let's kind of modernize our development tool sets and everything like that. I think the only game of recent that has really sort of shaken up the Pokemon formula, in my opinion, has been Legends Arceus.
I was going to ask
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one really just shook up the formula, made it just feel just so different compared to just a mainline Pokemon game. And yeah, it's not completely open world. It's kind of hub based, kind of like Monster Hunter, but still, it's a change in a great direction. I know with Scarlet and Violet, they've said that the game will be completely open world. You will be able to tackle any gym in any order that you wish. So that's kind of an interesting concept. But as I've repeatedly said, just we'll have to see when the rubber hits the road if their grandiose claims are true. Because if it's just marketing fluff, then it's just going to disappoint people again, unfortunately. But again, who knows? We might be pleasantly surprised, and maybe they get it right this time, and things end up better as a result. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I'm conflicted by your answer. I understand what you're saying. They need to really make big changes to their franchise. I've been playing, and you guys are going to see it on the videos this week. I've been playing Monster Sanctuary, which is a 2D side-scrolling version of Pokemon. And, you know, the Pokemon as characters are but I got addicted to it because it provided enough of a difference that Pokemon hasn't given, but because I like that style of gameplay so much, I played it for 3 hours straight and enjoyed myself, even though I can definitely see that it's not a top tier product, but because it scratches that itch, I enjoy it. Same thing with Digimon, the Cyber Sleuth games. They're okay games, but because I'm into that type of game and I'm starved for a different type of that game, I'm willing to sit through and play that too. I mean, that's another example. But I want to push back a little on your answer because for me, I just stopped getting every Pokemon game. I stopped playing every one of them. Of course, I started with Red and Blue, and I love those, and I think they're the best out of any of them. I did Gold, and then I stopped from there until I believe the 3DS. I stopped until then, and then played X and Y, which I didn't like. And then I played Sun and Moon, which I thought was fantastic. I loved Sun and Moon. I think it's the second best out of all the Pokemon. And then the last one, which was Sword and Shield, I was severely disappointed by that. Like I just was not happy with that game whatsoever. But I also liked Let's Go. I thought Let's Go was charming in its own way, and it was different enough where I got into it. But should they really be divorced from the problem? I'm not so sure about that. I honestly, like, it will never happen because they sell gangbusters. But I honestly think that maybe they should just do more spinoffs, and then maybe space out the mainline ones a little bit more. Like, instead of maybe every the last one was Sword and Shield was 2-3 years ago. Maybe do it every 5 years, maybe every 6 years, and do that, and then just sprinkle in spin-offs like Arceus and Pokken and stuff like that, and the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. I would do that, and then maybe they'll get enough of an idea flow where they'll find something different to do in those. I forgot about the remake they just had in between the two Pokemon games. What was it? Shining Pearl and Diamond? Was that?
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that one. Yeah. Like, I think they need to space them out a lot more. I think that's the main issue I see with the Pokemon franchise. I don't necessarily want to take Game Freak away from it. But maybe you're right. Maybe it needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should clarify when I say that they should be divorced of development, that it would still be fine for Game Freak to be on for a consultational role. So for like monster design and maybe just moveset consultation, especially if they're adding new Pokemon to a new generation, then yeah, I mean, and I personally would have no issue with just them being on for like design consultation, but I think tuning up the underlying systems and the design of the games in general should be something that either they should look into or just get another studio in to help them out on.
I think, and this is going to be controversial for a bunch of Pokemon fans, I think they should essentially, how do I put this? Do you know how the big thing where you can have your Pokemon from Gen 1 still be in Gen 9 from the daisy chain of types of like connections you would have? Like, you can keep you can have the ones from when you first started. I think they should end that. I think that would free up a lot of creativity for them to basically be able to do more things with the Pokemon franchise. Because I think once they say, "Hey, we're done with that. We're going to do something completely different now," so you won't need to do that. They stay there, but we're gonna the Pokemon will come back, but we're gonna do something completely different that you won't need to have your old Pokemon back. I think if they do that, and they can start something fresh, because I think that's what's hamstringing them. Because there are people who have been playing Pokemon since Red and Blue, who want to have their old Pokemon from that time and want them to be in the newest one, and be like, oh yeah, my old Squirtle or Blastoise. I guess I was a Bulbasaur fan, so I don't care. They want their old Blastoise back, and this is my Gen 1 Blastoise, and I want it in the new Scarlet Violet, and because it has this moveset and these EVs and IVs, then I want to have this one, and I want this in perpetuity. I think it's time to stop that. I think it's time to just say that part of Game Freak and Pokemon's over. We're doing something new, and you won't need to do that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think that might be the direction they need to do. And I know a lot of Pokemon fans would be like, "Good God, no, that would be terrible." Guys, I think it's time. I think in order to innovate, you're going to have to get rid of certain things, and if they innovate it enough, I don't think you'll care. So.
That and right now it's a bit of a problem if you want to transfer stuff and you didn't get on the transfer train really early on, because just to transfer to Gen 1 to Gen 2, that's doable through Game Boy consoles,
right?
And then Gen 2 to Gen 3, it's some weird stuff involving a Game Boy and a Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
And then it just gets real complicated from there.
Right.
And worse off is if you were one to have transferred all of your vintage Pokemon into your Switch Nintendo Pokemon Bank account from one of your old cartridges, and then you decided to transfer some of this Pokemon to use in say Sword and Shield, for example. There's also the issue that for some reason Game Freak did not enable the ability to back up your Pokemon saves to the Nintendo Switch Online Cloud service, and that gets into an interesting predicament because some people did have to have their Switch consoles sent in for repairs, and because the game save file is literally trapped on the system, if you had any of your vintage Pokemon that you've kept with you forever and you transferred it in to Sword and Shield and you didn't transfer them out back to your Pokemon Bank account, then well, bye vintage Pokemon, because if the service center had to reset your console, there's no way to recover that.
That's not true. I mean, Pokemon Home is on iPad, so it would.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If you transferred it before you sent your console for service,
okay,
you can still get it back. But let's say you were in the middle of playing Sword and Shield, and then something happened to your Switch console that you're like, oh well, shit. Now I got to send it out for service.
Oh, okay.
Then just boom, bye. Just Pokemon gone. So it's just sort of one of those things that, being able to transfer your stuff all the way from like Gen 1 is a nice and cute thing, but just they've got to really just get with the times as far as just letting people back up their save data.
Yeah.
And their anti-cheating excuse is just flimsy at best, because I know that was why they made a big stink about it with Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond, where they still wouldn't enable the ability to back up cloud saves because they were like, oh, well, we're afraid people will dupe Pokemon and we just can't have that. And it's just like well, with with just how the games are coded anyways, people are already duping Pokemon. That or the real hardcore dupers will not. They won't even dupe Pokemon. They'll generate them by tools like PK Hex and literally just generate a hacked Pokemon that'll pass the legitimacy checks. So it's just one of those things. It's like there's really no point in just not letting users back up their stuff, and hell, after every online transaction or whatnot, force it to back up to the Nintendo Switch Online cloud. If the player has Nintendo Switch Online, there's literally ways to get around the whole duping concern if they are that worked up about it.
Right. Well, I mean, Pokemon does need to change. I mean, I'm excited for Temtem right now, which is, I think it came out today, and spoiler alert, that'll probably be the game that will be on video next week, unless I completely hate Temtem, which I don't think is going to happen. But anyway, look, I'm excited for that, but even I'm like looking at Temtem, like this doesn't look that very good. But if it does enough different stuff, I might play it because I'm into those monster collecting games, and Pokemon's just not doing it for me anymore. So bring back Jade Cocoon, goddammit. I would say, yeah, right, Zero, Jade Cocoon.
Well, that game is also a collector's item too, so yeah. I would love for the collector's market to be completely disrupted.
Yeah, my game. I'll just do something recent. I think Saints Row needs to be taken away from Volition. Volition has now had 3 duds. Get Out of Hell, Agents of Mayhem, and now the new Saints Row. I don't know what happened. I think they had new direction, I believe. But from everything I've seen, from glitches to bugs to reviews and everything, like the new Saints Row is just something that no one wanted. Like, there was already talk before it came out, how people were not really that, like, old fans of Saints Row were not impressed by what they were doing. But they were holding off that maybe the gameplay is good. And when the gameplay turned out not so great, that's now 3 in a row now that basically Volition has now had to deal with when it comes to Saints, when it comes to their games. Embracer Group now owns Volition, which now owns the property to Saints Row. If I were Embracer, I would give them an ultimatum. Either the next game better be killer, it better be great, or we're sucking up your studio and we're splitting you up. Hate to be that harsh, but at that point, I don't see Saints Row selling very well. And from the looks of it, it didn't look like that it was that technically impressive. So I don't know how much it cost them to make. But they're taking their goodwill that they had from Saints Row 3 and 4, and they just shat all over it at this point. I was a fan of all 4 of the Saints Rows that came out. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I was a huge fan of 3. 3 was amazing. I loved 3. But for them to go, like, I understand that you had to I guess, reboot Saints Row, but you rebooted it into something so drastically different that it was unrecognizable to what fans were wanting. So that was a bad move. But I understand they had to refresh and do different characters. But I think a lot of people really liked the self-referential style of the game and really connected with it. And married it with really tight shooting and good gameplay. And you just had a massive hit. A really good game. For them to then turn it into what it is now, and for what I've seen, it just sounds like they had a creative drain. And I think it might be time to just say goodbye to Saints Row for Volition. Maybe start something completely fresh. Like, maybe, like, I'll give them this. Maybe put Saints Row on ice before you decide to divorce that property from that company. but I think Volition needs to step away from that property big time, especially with how it turned out now.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a shame because the idea of a reboot, it's not a bad one. I mean, I know that the premise for the Saints Row reboot is sort of a retelling of how the Saints are formed again.
Right.
And it's a new direction, so I mean the potential's there, but yeah, it's just one of those things that's just like, my God, you have really squandered one hell of an opportunity just to really, really make something of this.
Right. And when you reboot something, you don't reboot it and then reboot it to like, oh, all right, let's put it back to where it was at 1. No. You take all of the things that you learned from those 4 games, and when you reboot it, you take all that stuff, put it into the new reboot, and then either redo the series, or just do it that way. Like, take everything you learned that was successful, the self-referential humor, the style, the arcade-like gameplay, the ridiculousness of everything in the game, the setting. Like, take all that stuff, put it in the reboot, and do a fresh story. That's all you need to do. And they couldn't even do that. I'm just floored by the decisions they made in this game. And it just seems like what it seems like, let me be a little fair to them. What it sounds like is that they had an idea for a game, but someone said, yeah, but no one's going to do it unless we make a Saints Row game. So they took that idea, they kind of crowbarred in that idea to a Saints Row game, and instead of massaging it into a Saints Row style game, they just stapled it in and made it all Frankenstein-like. Like, the idea of having 4 kids trying to do crime in order to pay their rent sounds like a ridiculous idea that could actually work, and if done correctly, could be kind of charming. But to then marry it into, let's make it into a Saints Row game, didn't really sound very good. Like, to me at least. To me, it just sounded like they had a charming idea where they could have made it a parody of GTA as they did with the Saints Row 3 and 4 games as well, in that style where it's maybe more personable, and you're dealing with these 4 kids who have to like I said, do crime in order to pay the rent, and you can make that into a neat gameplay mechanic and have your own your own self-referential humor, and do a take on gig economy and stuff like that. But they then stapled it onto Saints Row, which just didn't fit, is what it sounds like to me, at least. I don't know, I haven't played it. I'm not even going to attempt to play it, because everything I've heard about it is it's bad, so I'm not spending $70 on it. So, there. I think it's time for them to just either put it on ice or let somebody else do the property. On that note, Zero, we are at the end of this episode of the Capital Games Podcast. Tune in next week to we discuss the going-ons and happenings of the gaming industry. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Feel better, Zero. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next time.